I think what we were really trying to achieve by bringing all these speakers here today, top-level speakers from around the country, is to bring or highlight the most recent research that's available and to disseminate that into the public. This allows individuals to be better informed about the risk of concussion and to make better decisions about sport participation.
There's a lot of unknowns. One of the things this conference is focused on today is that there's a lot of this research that is ongoing, and it's going to be several years till we figure things out. So we have a lot of research to do to understand this in a lot of different sports.
It's important because there's a lot of misnomers that are in the media or that have been put out there that have driven people away from sport participation.
Well, I think the incidence rates in general are going up simply because there's been more focus on concussion. So we now have all 50 states and Washington, D.C., they have a state concussion law that mandates education around concussion and the importance of reporting concussion if you sustain an impact and are experiencing symptoms. So we've closed the gap on the number of undiagnosed concussions and diagnosed concussions, which is a good thing. But yet people see the incidence rate climbing, they're like, oh my gosh, we're in this crisis, concussion crisis, which I don't believe exists. I don't think there is a concussion crisis today. I think the most important thing is to recognize that science is advancing our understanding of this very complex injury. I tell people that concussions are sort of like snowflakes. There are no two alike, which makes it challenging not only to study it, but to try to manage it from a clinical perspective.
As it stands now, there is no single test that is used to, quote, diagnose concussion. But we use a whole assortment of assessment techniques that add confidence in our assessment of an injured person and our formulation of the diagnosis.
We can't use a cookbook or a calendar or a clock to pull up, page 14. Okay, this is how we're going to manage this one, and in 6 hours they're going to probably be responding this way, and in 4 days they're going to be able to start this sort of activity, and by day 8 they're going to be able to go back to play. Everyone needs to be managed independently.
First thing is that we have a large body of accumulated evidence on the short-term recovery from concussion. And by and large, concussion is a really benign neurological injury that recovers very quickly and completely. So we don't have persistent neurological symptoms from concussion.
I think the important message in the clinical, scientific, and sporting communities is that concussive injury is relatively common across contact and collision sports, but when properly assessed and managed, it really is a transient neurologic event followed by a course of complete recovery over a relatively short period of time and return to normal activities without any complications in the overwhelming majority of athletes that we see at all competitive levels.
The second thing is that we still have some concerns about long-term consequences of multiple concussions or repetitive head trauma. We still don't know whether or not there are any associated risks in late life.
Really, there are more questions than answers, really, about the long-term effects. There are really no solid evidence that there are really any long-term effects, at least in terms of a degenerative brain disease, and from my perspective.
I think the awareness of concussion is important, but the pendulum swung too far to the side where people became overly paranoid about concussion and concerned about the consequences. I think the media inflamed that fear. And so as a result, you have a lot of people that are highly concerned about exposing their children to contact sports. Some of the studies that have been done that have really demonstrated that players return to normal quickly and completely, I think are now being more publicized. People are more aware of that. I think that's been important.
Yeah, so we have to understand concussion is not a male issue, and it's certainly not just a football issue.
The whole idea of everything centering around football and hockey is disingenuous because women's basketball has injuries, wrestling comes with injuries.
And then there are several sports where the rate of concussion is as high or about as high as men's football. It includes many women's sports.
So understanding the full spectrum of who is getting injured, when and where it's happening, and how we can treat concussion as an individual injury, I think is a real fascinating and strong development.
So we have to broaden our perspective and make certain that we're looking at it from an all-sport issue. And we also have to make certain that we understand that the way a concussion happens in soccer is different in football.
A lot of times people get the misinterpretation that, well, I'm just going to take my kid out of football because I don't want him to get a concussion. The reality is there's concussions in all sports and all activities. What people need to realize is there's a risk in any sport, and you need to play the sport the safest way and wear the best equipment you can.
The greatest gaps is really trying, I think, to identify how we can get athletes to report. We're seeing that their knowledge is increasing. It's making those behavioral changes that involves a bit of a culture change across all stakeholders involved with youth sports in particular.
If you tell a kid that concussion is going to kill you, that they may think about that, it may not matter. But if you tell a kid, if you're concussed and you go out and play, you may not be playing well, and you could let your whole team down. That's a bigger thing, and that's actually a risk that they care about. And so that's, I think, the place that we need to get to is what are the risks that they care about when you're weighing the risks and benefits.
We're increasing their knowledge about concussion, but that's not translating into them better reporting the injury. And so it's really needing to try and find avenues of education that will change their attitudes toward concussion and ultimately their behaviors so that they will go on and report, because there's a lot of influences out there. I don't want to let the team down. I might lose my starting position, that factor into their decisions of why they want to go back to play and perhaps why they might not talk about a concussion.
I hear a lot of questions from parents about what now? What do I do? Do I let my kid play football? Do I let my kid play soccer, which is completely new? You wouldn't get questions like that 5 years ago. Do I let my kid head the ball in soccer? And to me, it's we've gone the opposite direction. Like, of course your kids should play sports.
For me, as both scientist and sports parent, I want to have a detailed understanding of what the risks are, and I can make informed decisions about my children participating in a wide array of athletics, which they do, in a safe manner. And at our house, that applies to, again, a broad range of both contact and non-contact sports.
We spend a lot of time trying to get kids to be active and not to be obese, and that this is such a healthy thing, and not even from just a physical activity perspective, but from social environment and really learning how to be on a team. But I think that we need to have more data about, are there ways that we need to think about making sports safer?
And hopefully they'll see that 1-2 injuries that are well managed don't have long-term risks. And they'll encourage, they'll participate more, they'll encourage their children to participate more and others to participate more in sport.
What we see as the next great frontier in concussion and brain injury science is applying modern technologies such as advanced neuroimaging, protein biomarkers, and other technologies to inform the basic and clinical science on physiological or neurobiological recovery after brain injury.
Every day it seems like we learn more and more about concussions. As we learn more about concussions, it puts the decision makers in a better position to, with the health and safety of the athlete in mind, to make that standard of care a little bit clearer.